All right, hi students. We're going to talk about how to do this first paper. So I've opened up the assignment sheet here and I've tried to give you, it's kind of long. I understand that, but I've tried to give you kind of break down the process for you a little bit. So hopefully that's helpful. So I'm just going to try and pull out the important things here. So this is essentially, it's a compare and contrast paper. If you wrote any of those for 1301. So you're just going to take two situations and you're going to compare and contrast the similarities and differences in them. So one situation is a decision that you've made recently and went into that decision. And then the other one is a decision from a case study that's listed in here and what you think went into that decision. And what you learn from those two things is the reflection part. So that's just broken, that's just here, what I just said is just right here. For both of those decisions, I want you to consider that within the context of an ethical framework. Now, this isn't a philosophy class, and I don't need you to, like, you know, be, you're not necessarily having to show me that you are a philosopher, but this is just something to help you think about why you make decisions and what are the values that go into your decisions. And if, there's more, I'll explain more in the video before the activity, before this assignment. So hopefully go and watch that if you have any questions about that. Here, this link is the case study. So these are the different decisions that you could pick of somebody else. Okay. Grading criteria is down here. There's also a rubric attached to the assignment sheet. I don't have that up on mine because I'm the teacher and I can't even see it in the student view for some reason. So I can't show you that, but if you open up your course activity, look for a little kind of grid thing that says rubric, then you should be able to open it up. But it does say pretty much the same thing that's here on the grading criteria. So I'm going to be looking to see that you can write in MLA format, have good grammar and spelling. I'm going to be making sure that you got all those parts in. So that's everything I'm talking about up here in part 1, part 2, and part 3. I'm looking for analysis. So more than this happened. I want to see that you're thinking critically about what happened and coming to some hopefully new conclusions about why you make decisions or why other people make decisions. And that's kind of the whole point. One of the bigger points of writing is to think through things. So I should see that. And then the last part is organization. And this is kind of getting at what I hope you learned at 1301 is how to organize a paper. So I should see topic sentences. So that's the very beginning sentence should tell me what that paragraph is about. I should see an engaging introduction, something that, you know, kind of engages the reader right away, like a story or a question, and I have a link and something I'll show you in a minute. And then your conclusion should be a summary and end with a, you know, definite conclusion or reflection of so what did you learn from all this kind of idea. And then I'm looking to see that it's, you know, readable, that it's clear. Students are very good about writing a lot of words that really don't have much substance. I know that's partly our fault as teachers because we tell you to have these word counts and things. But yeah, make sure that you're writing something that, like, you're using words that matter, that you're not just putting in words to fill up the space. On that vein, I just realized that I don't have a word count on this. I do have a couple paragraph suggestions throughout. So that's kind of more what I'll be looking for. A paragraph would be 5 to 7 sentences at least. But yeah, I guess I don't have a word count for you. So I guess that's a bonus. All right, the other thing I want to show you, I'm going to upload this to D2L. I haven't yet. This is an outline that I've created to kind of help you get started on this because I wanted you to think about decisions because it's one of the things that is in the course objectives. But also I think you're at a time in your life, most people are when they come back to college, where they're kind of trying to make new you know, choices, and I think it's good to just sit down and kind of reflect about that. And I just, when I think about what papers I want you to write, I try and think about something that would be helpful for you in your life. So that's kind of what was the impetus behind this. Anyway, so but I think this is maybe a little bit of a different paper. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of help in getting started on it. So this is the outline. I would, you know, that I came up with. You don't need to follow it word for word, please don't actually, but just to get you started on it. So when you write, it's good to think about, the different, if you can think about like when you read a novel or something, there's going to be different snapshots throughout that writing. So for instance, you might have the snapshot of, well, let's talk about Harry Potter. You have the snapshot of Harry Potter in his life when he first, before he knows he's a wizard, and you learn about what happens there. And then you have the snapshot of him like figuring out, getting these letters and figuring out maybe he's a little bit different than he thought, right? So you're thinking about your writing in those terms. Like, here's the first thing I'm going to focus on, and I'm going to flesh out all of that snapshot, and then I'm going to go to the next snapshot and flesh all that out, right? So even though that's fiction writing, we do kind of the same thing in nonfiction writing as well. So your first snapshot here is the introduction. So here's where you introduce the paper. This is about decisions. This could be just like a story, a question, a thought you have. I have a link in here that will take you to some other ideas of introductions you could include. The whole idea here for the introduction is to set up the paper and engage your reader and get them thinking about decisions. Now, I have here that you can have a thesis if you want, but you don't have to. That holds most of the time. You have your thesis in your introduction, but for a compare and contrast essay, there are many cases you could make where it'd be better to save it. So I'll let you decide on that one. I just need to see that you're introducing your topic pretty well. And then here I've just broken down kind of really just into sentences and questions, the assignment sheet thing. So right here, you see the first paragraph. You really should start talking about, the decision you made before you can talk about your reflection on the decision you made, right? I just have the sentence in here, a personal decision I had to make was. Now, do you have to have that word for word? Please don't, actually. But I think it's helpful to give sentence starters to help you kind of get going on thinking about how it is. Now, if you do end up saying, like, I really feel like this is the best way to say it, that's okay. But the idea is just to kind of get going on that, right? So when you come back and edit, like, you're probably going to change things around a little bit. But that's the idea of the sentence starters here. And then the questions are just, hey, what is the tension you feel? How did you feel about this decision? Just thinking through that, then your answers are what you would put in there, right? So that's all for the body paragraphs. And then the conclusion, I also have another link here that talks about what, you include in a good conclusion, which would be a summary of what you learned. In this case, it would be a reflection of what you learned. I have at least 2 paragraphs here because I think you should have at least 2 paragraphs. One where you kind of talk about what you learned, the process of your decision making, the role of emotions. I would actually probably put A and D together, and do B and C in another paragraph. So I might switch that around. But the whole thought is you kind of have to introduce your conclusion for this kind of a paper because you've talked about your one decision, you talk about the case study, and then you kind of need to talk about them together before you can conclude them, if that makes sense. So the last thing I have on here is to remember to use transition words throughout the essay. And there's a link there. Those would be like comparatively or in addition to this, and that just helps your reader follow along, okay? Now, am I going to be looking, I'm not going to necessarily be looking that you follow this all word for word, and then, like I said, that's not necessarily even something I want, but this is to just as a hopefully helpful thing to help you get started on what to start filling in those different sections on your paper for. So I don't know that I will do this on subsequent papers, but this is something to kind of consider when you're doing your writing, is to start thinking through what you would want to do. Actually, on the rhetorical analysis, I will have you do a little bit of an outline. And this is a thing I teach in 1301 that I'll say here. I don't necessarily grade it here, but before you write, it's really helpful to have thought through what you're going to write. So that's kind of the idea behind here. This outline here is just helping you start thinking through that. So, Okay, that's enough. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I have office hours on Mondays at 11. You can just drop in and ask questions there, or you can email or text me. I think I have both of those in this syllabus. So, all right, good luck. Decisions.